Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, it is yours truly once again, the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security, hanging out today with the coolest lady on earth, Miss Amanda Lewis. Now, let me tell y'all something about Amanda. You're talking about the coasty stuff, big time Coast Guard, man, doing like some intelligence stuff around the world. I don't even know what that is, DOD, and then coming into big time company like Facebook. So I don't even know how to introduce you other than you're the coolest lady on earth. You have the most awesomest stories with pirates and shanty. If we get into that a little bit, that'll be really cool for the folks. She's literally a true Coast Guard pirate.
Let me tell y'all out there a little story, man, and it goes a little something like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, it is yours truly once again, the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security, hanging out today with the coolest lady on earth, Miss Amanda Lewis. Now, let me tell y'all something about Amanda. You're talking about the coasty stuff, big time Coast Guard, man, doing like some intelligence stuff around the world. I don't even know what that is, DOD, and then coming into big time company like Facebook. So I don't even know how to introduce you other than you're the coolest lady on earth. You have the most awesomest stories with pirates and shanty. If we get into that a little bit, that'll be really cool for the folks. She's literally a true Coast Guard pirate. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. But hey, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm pumped up. I'm so pumped to have you. From the first time we chatted, I was like, that is one of the coolest human beings I've ever met. And you have an awesome story. And to go from all of those, from DOD, Coast Guard stuff, into a crazy company like Facebook, it's like two sides of the equation, totally separate ways of moving along. And if there's somebody that can help the folks that are transitioning from the military, law enforcement, emergency services, and the old federal careers to help them out a little bit, I think you're it. And I'm excited. So, look, I don't want to take much of your time. So tell us about yourself.
Okay, sure. So let's start with I have an art degree. My degree is in art and art history.
What?
Yeah. It's kind of a non-traditional start to joining into the service.
That's cool.
And when I was in college, I started interning with the Navy. So couldn't drink yet, but was interning with the Navy while I was getting my degree. And it turns out feeding myself is a priority.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And so I ended up working for the Navy full-time as a civil servant when I graduated. And I stuck with that for about 5 years. And then I decided I wanted to go to California, and I found a job working as a civil servant for the Coast Guard.
Right.
And so I lived in Southern California for 10 years. If you are in any way aware of some of the problems that Southern California has faced in the last several years, you'll know that they've had a huge issue with smugglers up and down the coast. And so that was part of the sort of package that I was responsible for. Amongst a huge team of very diverse stakeholders that were also addressing this. So I did that for about 10 years. And I started to actually look around and see myself in a different light. It's sort of been a journey of self-discovery for me.
Right.
And I realized that skills that I thought of as inherently me were actually marketable. Like marketable skills. I was ready for something a little new, and I started looking around, and that's kind of how I started my journey into looking at what the possibilities were in the private sector, which is not something people think about really in the military a lot.
Right. Let me tell you, your story is amazing. Like I said, I'm so happy to share with everybody else. But also, you did a great job, and I remember this on LinkedIn. You did a great job of posting some real cool resume stuff. And I said, oh, man, that is pretty awesome. So for that, I got to give you the clap there, because you're already helping folks. You've been helping folks for a very long time, I have a feeling. And this is just kind of just the beginning for you, because you're really awesome. So, all right, I'm going to kick it off with some questions then to get this party going.
Let's do it.
And to help out these folks. So I know when I kind of spent my couple of years there as a cop, and I had to transition here and there, and even when I transitioned from corporate to a different company, there's like some weird stuff that's different. I got to learn. Tell me a little bit about maybe one or two things that when you did that transition from kind of working with the DoD and then working with the Navy and all this other stuff, Coast Guard, and then coming into something like Facebook. Tell me a couple of things that were like, oh wow, this is different.
Okay, yeah. Um, so first of all, so obviously I'm maybe not obviously, but I'm a female and I identify as female, and I'm sort of on the feminine end of the spectrum.
She,
And
her, she, her.
that's she, her,
The-
absolutely. And working as a female civilian in a primarily uniformed, primarily male environment to an environment that's very diverse
yeah.
in all sorts of different ways, even though I haven't ever been in the office because I was hired during COVID. Just interacting with so many different people from different nationalities, from different like walks of life, that identify in different ways, has been such an exciting and wonderful change from what I was used to.
Yeah.
In some ways it's challenging because you get used to interacting with people in a certain way because they have a prescribed way of doing things in the military often. And even though it's a cross section of society, it's still a fairly limited cross section of society. And so Facebook has just been wonderfully diverse and has allowed me to learn so much about so many different people.
How is it different? Now, I'm not stupid. I grew up in that same field, criminal justice major. I can just imagine, and I've never lived where I'm a lady in kind of the military world or something like that. Then I get to a company that is so open like Facebook. Is it like a big relief? And I'm not,
It's
I don't know if you saw the Altaf podcast that I got a little bit deeper, but I don't know if it is a big relief. I'll let you answer it if you want to, but I think for the ladies that are transitioning, it's great to hear this.
absolutely. So, I mean, I worked for the military in one capacity or another for not quite 14, 15 years. And we're talking like this was very much before the Invisible War documentary came out, which is about
Right.
like sexual assault and harassment in the military.
Yep.
I personally am kind of a mama hen type person, so I would try and protect people as much as I could and shield them. But I think for me, the biggest shock was I had gotten to this point where I was doing the same job for about 10 years and people would rotate in and out.
Right.
And it's not in any way to disparage my time like working for the government, working for the military, because on the whole, it was an incredibly positive experience. But there were moments, right? There's moments in every job that you're in which are maybe not ideal. And what I found was I would constantly have to justify why people should listen to me.
Right.
Because I'm not in uniform and because I don't kind of fit the mold.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'd been doing the same thing more or less for like 10 years or so, new people would rotate in. And instead of just accepting like, oh, here's this person who's been doing this before I got here, maybe I should listen to them, you would have to run through your whole, these are sort of why you should listen to me and run through all of these different processes and trainings that you've been through. And I have literally never felt like that in the private, like, and I don't know if that's just Facebook or if that's the private sector in general, but I feel like people just have kind of accepted whoever is there because they need to be and because they're qualified. And I've never felt like I've had to justify why people should listen to my opinion.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing. One, first of all, it must have sucked that every like 3 years, because I know in the military a lot of people rotate every 3 years or so, and then every 3 years you have to re-explain everything that you've already explained, and then sorry men's out there, the whole mansplaining thing that we do on the other side, which is quite pointless, but it's like you said, it's a huge relief going into a company like a Facebook that both you and I happen to work for, and we've exchanged some stories of how funny sometimes it is. You're walking around at work and you go, oh, the dude is wearing literally board shorts, T-shirt with a naked lady on it and sandals, but that's art and that's perfectly okay. But the way that they're open, and I'll tell you, I think Facebook is getting even more actually open like that. I hear even more talk. Do you think the company will be open enough? Do you think the military are they changing that a lot, or are they staying the same? There's we got a new president coming in that's opening up a bunch of things, bringing back some stuff again.
I think, obviously I have a different perspective than some people because as a civil servant versus being uniformed, and women still take up a small piece of the military, and I know there's still a lot of issues, but I will say from my sort of beginnings as a 22-year-old working for the military and bringing up issues that I saw and then nothing being done about them, to even a couple of years ago bringing up issues, I feel like they are being more aggressively dealt with.
Right.
I know there have been some changes sort of internally and sort of prioritizing of some of these claims or allegations so that they're dealt with in a much more serious way than I think they were previously. And so that's something I really love to see, because I think everyone deserves a safe space to work in, male and female.
Right.
And certainly, males can be victimized as well. So I think it's important to really have that. And I do think that there's been a lot of positive changes in that regard. I think there's probably still a ways to go, as there is anywhere, but each day is an opportunity to do better.
Man, first of all, it's exciting for me to hear that. It's exciting that I work for the company that makes you feel that way too, and just like you work for the company, and as I am a leader for the company that we both work for, it's always good to hear that. So that is a positive. When you go into the corporate world, they're really mindful of making sure that it's not about the color of your skin or your sex or whatever the case may be. It's the content of your character and what you bring to the work itself. Martin Luther King, thank you, Junior. There you go. But yeah, no, that's exciting to hear. Now, on a technical piece, and let's go on a technical piece a little bit. Was there anything that when you changed over, like using the applications or using the systems or using anything, you're like, oh crap, I got to learn this. I've never seen this before. Compared to, I've worked with a couple of DoD folks that I had to teach them how to get into Outlook. So I don't know. Was there anything technical that when you came from that side of the world, the kind of militaristic side of the world, into the corporate security? I mean, not corporate security because you're in ops, though you are doing investigative work.
I am.
That's right. Is there anything specific there?
I think there's a lot of internal tools that don't exist anywhere anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered if you transferred from elsewhere in the private sector. So all of those have a really steep learning curve. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think I needed help getting into Outlook per se.
It was a State Department guy. Actually, it was the State Department. I just remembered. Sorry. So see, a little bit different. There you go.
Well, I mean, I think the other piece of this is in the private sector, like they let your equipment work, and you don't have equipment from late 1995. So you're a little bit more ahead of the times. This is actually a question I get a lot. They're like, do you have to bring your own computer? And I'm like, no, Fred,
No.
like they issue you a computer.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they give you almost everything that you want. It's crazy that you get hired. And I want to talk a little bit about being hired during COVID, because there's a lot of folks out there. They're trying to transition. They're trying to figure out what their future are, but they're a little afraid, man. It's COVID time. Nobody's hiring, and I want to walk through that process a little bit with you on how you got there. But yeah, it was pretty interesting to me when I got to Facebook specifically. They're like, yeah, whatever you want. You want a bigger screen for your computer? Yeah, sure. Do you want another screen? I'm like, another screen? Yeah, sure. Do you want the 15-inch laptop, the 14-inch laptop, Apple product, or the other product? I was like, oh my God, I think
I know.
I've hit the electronics jackpot. So there you go. And I don't know if you had a chance to see like the machines that we have at campus.
I've never been on campus.
Oh God, we have these machines that, like, if you need a plug, if you need anything, you just go to a machine and you press the button, and it's a vending machine that gives you all this stuff all the time, batteries, whatever you want. There it is. So there you go. All
Super
right.
nice. Yeah.
Hey, but I do want to talk about it. So you brought up a good point. So you were hired during COVID times, and there's a lot of folks out there right now transitioning that are, I've heard. So I've had a lot of conversations with folks, and they're a little sad because the times are difficult. They're probably a little tired of putting in applications and getting a no in return. And it is COVID. It's a little bit different, but there are some companies out there that are hiring. Can you tell me a little bit about the process, how it went for you, and how it worked out? Clearly,
So
well.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So I started in April of last year. I actually got called the night before I was supposed to fly in for a panel, like a live panel interview. And I
Yep.
got a call from my recruiter and he said, do not get on a plane. And so
What?
yeah, like don't get on a
Wow.
plane. Our company's going remote tomorrow. No one's going in the office. So, I mean, we're talking hours from me
Yeah.
having to leave for the airport. So it actually worked out because I got more sleep. But everything has been virtual since then. And so I was sort of among the first wave of people that got onboarded remotely on our
Yep.
team. And so there are some really good things about it and some really challenging things about it. And it's a little hard to separate whether it was challenging because of COVID or challenging because a lot of the information is very new and nuanced. And also because I have no basis for comparison in the private sector. The last time I worked in the private sector was when I was, 19. I worked at Starbucks.
Right.
Get back, I was an art major. I worked at Starbucks like a
Hey,
good art major.
just so you know, I am a Pete's coffee guy. I'm just throwing a sorry. All right.
It's okay. It's totally okay. It stripped me away from drinking frou-frou coffee drinks. You just keep putting sugar in things and you're like, "Yeah, I'll just take it black. It's
There
fine."
you go.
But actually now, interestingly, I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually the onboarding lead for my team,
Oh,
partly
wow.
because, yeah, they say like no problem is anybody else's, for someone else to solve, like every
That's
problem's
right.
for you to
If you
solve.
see an issue, you take it. You attack it.
And so fortunately, the girl that did a great job really kind of slapping together an onboarding program for us. She went on maternity leave. And because again, shockingly, I don't have to justify why people should listen to me. Like they just sort of take you at face value. And I think it's the same for every member of our team.
Right.
Like you're here because we see something in you. We think you have value to add. So we're here to listen. And so I provided a lot of feedback and they said, cool, do you want to join the onboarding team to implement that? And now I lead the onboarding program. And so I think I like to think that it's better than it was. Because it's an iterative process and learning and developing. Our team is hiring actually. So if you're an investigator and you want to join my team, I'm sure we can put some of the job announcements out there. But yeah, I mean, it was challenging. It was challenging, and it's challenging not getting to meet your team in person.
Right.
I'm a people person, so it's harder to connect with people.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm literally, my wife and I are like, she's like, dude, get out of here. You need to get out of the house for a bit because you need people,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you.
It's hard. It's hard, but it's a huge learning experience. And I think that there are ways that you can actually get out there and meet people, even if it's not in person. And so we try and do like social events and events where we have the opportunity to really talk to people and keep them a little less structured so that you're not only bringing your work self and you can kind of get to know people. I mean, you and I met through LinkedIn.
Right. And that's the thing. And by the way, I'm going to remind folks again, by the way, how would they even get that resume thing? Do they just look you up and then it's probably in your posts or
it's actually highlighted? Yeah.
What made you want to do that resume paper thing?
Yeah. So
that goodness.
So once I had some friends that transitioned from working in civil service and working for the military into the private sector, and they would talk to me about it. And I think like a lot of people who work for the military who aren't really ready to transfer, it's scary and it's overwhelming. Right. And like, what would I even do? Because so much of what you do in the military is one for one. And so it's kind of hard to see how those skills would translate into the private sector. And my friend would talk to me and be like, oh, you should apply for these things and you should get experience. And it's actually my friend Scott, who we can probably also link to. He has a fantastic video series as well, where he talks to people making transitions.
Talking about Mr. Walker?
Yes, Mr. That's Walker. He and I worked together when we both worked for the Coast Guard, and we've stayed friends.
He's my favorite.
And so he was so instrumental and so helpful for me in answering questions and really getting a sanity check and giving me tips and how to prepare my resume and how to which skills of mine to emphasize. And I want to pay that forward.
Yeah.
And so some people had reached out to me about how to improve their resumes. And I come from a like an Intel background where I wrote a lot and I wrote a lot for very different audiences. And
Yeah.
so I like to think that I have a lot of experience in being able to try and figure out what kind of information should be represented in a given way for a particular audience. Like how do I present
Yeah.
information so that you can scan it really easily?
Yep.
Because somebody maybe only has 10 or 15 or 30 seconds to look at your document and they shouldn't have to
Absolutely.
fish for the things that they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had looked at a few people's resumes in very different fields, and I saw kind of some different commonalities. And I was actually providing feedback to someone very generally on their resume, and I wrote up these tips and said, maybe I should make an infographic and share these more widely. And so I shared them
Right.
with Scott, and Scott was like, yes, yes, let's do a session on this. And um,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I'm going to tell all the listeners out there, if you're listening, you have to go find Amanda Lewis on LinkedIn. Go find her stuff. She posted actually a couple of them, not just the resume one. She does some really, really great stuff out there. And she did mention Scott Walker. By the way, it's SCOT, only one T.
One
Mr.
T.
Scott Walker. I think he's like video 30 something these days, and he does a great job also of interviewing folks that are transitioning and are given tidbits here and there about the corporate world and everything else. So I'm going to make sure we plug big time Scotty Walker out there.
Hmm.
He almost sounds like a Star Wars kind of Scotty Walker.
Big Star Wars fans, that family.
Yeah, see, Scotty Walker, I like that. So, hey, very, very cool stuff. Was there any skills, I think, from kind of your investigative slash intel days that was transferable into the corporate world? And does a job like investigations? Because a lot of people ask me this, the kind of the base for this question. A lot of people ask me, hey, I'm kind of like an operations guy, or I was a cop, or I was in an infantry, or I was in just on a boat somewhere leading a group of guys. What would be the easiest place for me to transfer into corporate? Is it intelligence, investigations? How did your obviously investigative in intelligence background, was that easily transferable to what you do today?
I think so. I mean, I think that it's actually a fun fact. I didn't actually apply for this job. I applied for a different job, which I never talked to anyone about.
Right.
But the recruiter reached out to me, and I was looking at my jobs list of jobs I had applied to, and I was like, I don't think I applied for this position. I'm not that I'm not interested, but I don't think I did.
But hey,
And
I'll take it. Let's talk.
yeah, I mean, sure, let's talk about it.
Yep.
And I do think that the skills parlayed very well. I think the biggest thing is you sort of have to be naturally open-minded and curious. I don't know if
Yeah.
you can teach curiosity, but if you like to kind of solve puzzles, because you were an investigator or a sergeant, or I think that translates really well into this. I think the biggest skills that have served me have been that, but then also my soft skills, and
Ah.
especially in this environment, working remotely. I tend to lead with empathy first,
Oh, perfect.
and that's a
Perfect.
little bit different than a lot of people in the military and law enforcement.
A lot different.
And so I would lead meetings and try and get a lot of interagency stakeholders together to
Yep.
share information so that we could work better together. And I would build those relationships and make those connections. And I've been doing that a lot in my current role. And so I think that has served me really well.
That is
Um,
such a beautiful thing that you said. That I think that almost if there was one skill, forget about anything you ever done in the military, law enforcement, emergency services, or federal jobs. If there's one skill that you can start honing on today to better yourself and understand a corporate culture in the outside world, especially in tech for sure, where we work, is that empathy piece
mhm,
and being kind of a good listener. And you also said in the investigative world, because you're always investigating, that means you're learning. You're really into learning, uh,
mhm,
being open minded to learn from other people, uh, oh, um, the ability to um, just, you know, I usually just say humble. just to really be humble because you're kind of starting everything. You were the best at what you were doing when you were in the military because you were doing it for so long. Everybody respected you, and all of a sudden it's like a restart, ain't it?
Mhm.
You got to kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a little wild, and I mentioned this briefly in one of my conversations with Scott, but imposter syndrome is very, very real, and so that's been quite a journey, and I'm not past that at all. If you don't know what I'm talking about, chances are, if you Google it, you'll recognize that you may have felt that at different points in your life, and in fact, you may feel that now.
Yeah.
But that's been a very real thing that I've had to deal with, especially coming from a very different background. Um,
I suffer from that, and I've been doing this for now 25, 26 years. But I've always been humble. I wasn't born in this country. I was born in Brazil, and I had to learn English when I was 11. And I always, for some reason, it's like always feeling a little bit lesser than everybody else. I don't know exactly what the term is, but it's almost like I'm always making sure, okay, was that right? Did I do it correct? But what happens is that I ask a lot of questions,
mhm.
and I'm learning even more. And people start to realize, man, Carlos is really interested. He's just not, doing that. And because of that, I could work on the side of empathy because I can feel what anybody may be feeling if I'm asking them to do something they don't have a clue, or let me show you something. Let's talk about this. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here for you. I've been in your shoes. I understand where you're coming from.
Mhm.
You are better than me. I know you are. All these things, and I love it. I love that you said that empathy. It's probably one of the biggest things that I tell folks all the time to bring over.
I think people in military law enforcement use it, but they use it in a different way
Uh huh.
often, because empathy is really like feeling what someone else is feeling, or kind of trying to understand their viewpoint or their
Yep.
perspective,
Hmm.
and then using that. And so in a sort of traditional military law enforcement environment, you might think of that as like red teaming, right? Like you're
Right.
trying to really get in the shoes of the enemy, to be able to, or the adversary, to try and figure out what they would do so that you can counter it. That's a kind of empathy. It's maybe not a
Yeah.
compassionate empathy, but it is a kind of empathy. And this serves you so well, not just the way you said, which is I think how we normally think about empathy, like being caring to other people and
Right.
saying like, hey, I've been in your shoes, like I understand that this might be uncomfortable, like we could talk about it. It's hard to ask questions, like I'm here for you. That's one piece of it, but the other piece, and then sort of the other piece is the adversarial piece. But there's a piece that's also understanding who your customer is, and obviously that's a really important thing for me when I'm writing reports, or when
Yep.
I'm curating resumes, or writing some sort of investigative findings. Who is the ultimate customer, understanding where they're coming from, having that kind of empathy so that I can provide them, with what they're looking for and what is going to be most useful for them.
Yeah. It seems like you do that genuinely.
Mhm.
Like it
I care
seems like
about
you do.
people.
And I've had that, and I've had some fake ones too, that are like, oh man, you're coming off really bad, like because you don't have that trust of the people first. You weren't vulnerable first, then you show the empathy. You're just
Mhm.
showing some things, but people, but I feel the way obviously you're coming forth on here on the screen to me and the listeners. Hope you're listening to this. It's definitely comes from the heart, and that's really important, and I'm a big fan of that. So, kudos for you, Ms. Amanda. Hey, one more thing. We're coming up on a 30 minutes here, and I usually like to kind of finish up on one or two things that you can share with the folks that are transitioning. Anything whatsoever that you can kind of prepare them, get them ready for the transition world into the corporate, into our corporate world. So I'll leave it up to you.
Sure. So a couple of things. So the first one is don't give up,
Ah,
right? I think it's so easy to get frustrated. I got a lot of rejections. I got a lot of places that I applied to, especially because I have all these different skills. Like writing is a very transferable skill. Analysis is a very transferable skill. I applied to a lot of places that I didn't hear anything back from. Um, I applied to some places that on paper looked like a perfect fit that I never heard from. And I was frustrated. Like it's frustrating. You
Right.
at least want an interview. You're like, at least meet me. Like on paper, it seems like a perfect
Or at
fit.
least email me back or something.
Yeah. So that's frustrating, and it's so easy to take that personally. But understand there's lots of different moving parts there, and it's not necessarily you, right? It could be everything to do with them or their system, or whoever's looking at your resume is having a bad day, or maybe your resume wasn't read through the system, because some places use automatic resume kind of readers, and maybe it just didn't meet whatever threshold they had stated. So don't give up.
Yeah, that is awesome.
That's the first one. The second one is probably really utilize your utilize your network, leverage your network, ask people for opinions. People who know you, people who don't know you. I think there's a very supportive network of people on LinkedIn that are happy to support and help even virtual strangers.
Yep.
So, and if all else fails, there's lots of services to get a second set of eyes on your resume or on your LinkedIn profile. Or,
yep.
So just understand that it's not if you get rejected, it's not a rejection of you necessarily.
I'm going to say rejection turned that into a connection. There you go. I'm just going to say that. Listen, I want to thank you again for your time, Miss Amanda. That was really awesome. Thank you for giving back to the folks. And everybody out there on radio listening to this, on podcasts, and then later on video and YouTube, if you have the opportunity, check out Amanda Lewis on LinkedIn. She's got some really good stuff. The resume paperwork that she put together is key, extremely important to what you want to do, the connections that she can connect you with, and vice versa. I'm sure she's willing to take a little bit of time to kind of talk to you through her story and how she got into the corporate world, and maybe connect you with some of those jobs that I know that her team right now has, because I'm good friends with some of the other folks that are on our team as well. So there's a lot of great opportunities at Facebook. And so don't be afraid to connect with Amanda Lewis. And for today, Amanda, thank you very much once again for coming out, hanging out with us. And we covered a bunch of stuff, soft skills, which is great. Taking rejections as a new connection is another one. And leveraging all the folks that you already know was another touch-up point. I got so many of them over here. Look at this, COVID. Being hired while COVID-19, and stay strong and understand that. Look, you're going to get a lot of no's, but a no's only means that you're going to get a yes in the future. So stay strong with it, and thank you very much. And we'll see you guys from the Corporate Security Translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security. We're going to leave it here with Miss Amanda Lewis. Check her out, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.
Thank you.